Story 1. How the world's pollution seems to get blamed on the average person, while the large amounts of pollution caused by corporations and wealthy individuals with private jets are rarely mentioned. Companies like British Petroleum discussing carbon footprints after spilling millions of barrels of oil into the sea. I am happy to do my part, but no amount of paper straws and reusable bags that I use in my life will come anywhere close to what a company like that can spill into the ocean in 1 hour. Story 2. When famous people die from overdoses, it is heartbreaking. In contrast, when poor people die from overdoses, they are often labeled as junkies. Story 3. Receiving financial assistance is often seen as a sign of weakness or a handout to the individual. But when a company does it, it is viewed differently. Story 4. If you steal from your employer, you are punished much more harshly than if your employer steals from you. Story 5. The double standard between the rich and the poor: day drinking, taking drugs, not working, receiving government assistance, avoiding taxes, speaking multiple languages, quirky versus crazy, bankruptcy, wearing vintage clothing, having multiple children, white-collar crime versus blue-collar crime. I could continue. Story 6. Tax revenue is mandatory. Companies and billionaires cannot opt out. If you owe $1, they will come for you. Story 7. While hearing and seeing are equally important, getting glasses to see better is perfectly normal. However, wearing hearing aids in both ears is often perceived as a real disability and may be considered a deal breaker. Story 8. I am in a car near a motorcycle. I need to look twice for that motorcycle. I need to double-check if it is in my blind spot. It is my job as the larger vehicle to watch out for the smaller vehicle. I am in a car near an 18-wheeler. I need to stay out of its way. It is my fault if I am in its blind spot. It is my job as the smaller vehicle to stay out of the bigger vehicle's way. Obviously, I still do both of those things because I do not want myself or someone else hurt over a bit of rules of the road inconsistency. Story 9. Committing a crime when you are poor results in life in prison. Committing a crime when you are rich is considered the cost of doing business. Story 10. If you are wealthy enough, the law does not apply to you. Story 11. We can humanely let our pets go to preserve their quality of life, but not people. Story 12. How emotional expression is treated differently based on gender. When women express emotions, especially sadness or vulnerability, it is often dismissed as being too emotional, overreacting, or hormonal. When men express emotions, particularly sadness or fear, it is often seen as a weakness or something unmanly, so they are expected to man up or suppress their feelings. At the same time, people are told to be open about mental health and talk about how they feel. Society celebrates vulnerability in theory but judges it differently depending on who is being vulnerable. This reinforces toxic masculinity, stigmatizes emotional intelligence, and damages both personal and societal relationships. Story 13. I used to live in an area with a heavy cyclist population, so this is always top of mind. Cyclists generally want to be treated like cars where dedicated bicycle lanes are not present. That is, give them space and let them use part of a lane, which is totally understandable. No one reasonably wishes any harm on cyclists, and they should have space to be safe. Many drivers are not paying enough attention, and it can be dangerous for cyclists due to distracted drivers. However, a sizable contingent of cyclists want to completely ignore all traffic laws because they do not want to slow down, use their brakes, or stop entirely. That group of cyclists is often openly hostile to pedestrians, too. The number of times I was nearly hit by a cyclist in a crosswalk where I have the right of way is too high. Usually, those cyclists were yelling at me as if I were in the wrong. You are not in a professional race. Follow the traffic laws. Before the cyclist group reacts, yes, many drivers also break traffic laws. But in my experience as a pedestrian for years, it is about 5 to 10 times more likely that cyclists are extremely blatant about it. My favorite example is when cyclists have a dedicated and protected bike lane, complete with stoplights specific to the bike lane, and they still ignore them. If you are the smaller vehicle, much more likely to be hurt in an accident, you should be 10 times more careful, not less. Story 14. Baby boomers telling Generation X and millennials to just work harder. while they own most of the real estate and could support a family of 5 without a college education on a single income. It is not the same playing field. They rigged the system and shame us in the same breath. Story 15. Playing video games all day means you are a loser, but watching television and movies all day is just fine. My sister and her husband watch television all night, every night. I play video games a few hours a week when I am off work, and they say I am lazy. Okay, guys. Story 16. Literally everything. There are more studies on male baldness than on endometriosis. It drives me crazy. Story 17. Mom taking care of the children is completely expected. Dad taking care of the children is so sweet. He is babysitting his children. Story 18. Taking care of my children and being asked if I am the babysitter for the day. Story 19. Sociopathic traits are rewarded in friendships, relationships, and work, while honesty, sincerity, and empathy cause problems. Story 20. Opposed to abortion, single motherhood, and young motherhood. Story 21. Texas can redistrict to manipulate votes, but California cannot. Story 22. Men having frequent sex is seen as a sign of masculinity. Women having frequent sex is often judged negatively. Virgin men are considered inexperienced and incapable, while virgin women are viewed as pure and good. Both of these are double standards and should be clarified. Story 23. How medical care is stigmatized for specific conditions. Is your condition seen as politically inconvenient? If so, no treatment may be available. In fact, some people advocate against your treatment being legal at all. Differences in healthcare research for men versus women. Many conditions that primarily affect women are understudied, and treating men as the default creates blind spots in various health risks. Determining what qualifies as controlled substances is seemingly arbitrary and creates unnecessary barriers to medical research involving these substances. Story 24. Women can cook at home but not in a professional setting. Yes, this is still very real. Story 25. Christians pretending they are victims and everyone going along with it. Story 26. Many people are concerned about restrictive eating disorders, but do not treat binge eating disorder seriously. Counting calories is apparently considered eating disorder behavior, but binge eating and gaining so much weight that you struggle to climb stairs is not recognized as an eating disorder. Story 27. The variation in the gauge of train tracks here in Australia. Story 28. The people with the least are expected to give all that they have to survive in the United States. Story 29. You do not own the sidewalk in front of your house, but you are still responsible for keeping it clean. Story 30. Are you autistic, need help in public, and occasionally prone to outbursts? Adorable and a little misunderstood. Are you autistic, able to drive, and have mixed results in holding a job? You tell yourself, this time it is going to be different, as you cycle through a new group of friends. Story 31. It is best for someone to stay home with the children while they are young, but do not have a gap on your resume. Story 32. Right now, the Department of Justice is moving toward justifying a pardon or reduced sentence for convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, who lured underage girls into the circle of the currently most infamous sex offender in the world. A couple of years ago, the political right was eager to promote the movie Sound of Freedom, which was allegedly about saving children from sex trafficking. This is nothing new. In the 1990s, the Republican Party and the entire political right were outraged over the fact that Bill Clinton cheated on his wife. Now, the leader of the Republican Party and the figurehead of the political right is a man who cheated on his first wife with his second wife with his third, and his third wife with a porn star. I realize that's 2 double standards, so let's call it 3. For nearly my entire life, the worst insult you could use against a political figure was that they were allied with Russia. The political right would go wild and accuse people of communism as freely as handing out candy on Halloween. Now, the head of the Republican Party and the political right is so close to a former Soviet intelligence agent that he seems to carry his scent with him. What in the actual world is going on? Story 33. A foolish person continues to keep their job in the White House despite having 34 criminal convictions and being unable to speak coherently, while being treated as if they are divine. Story 34. Republicans who say they care most about the economy and national debt but then vote to cripple the economy with tariffs and increase the national debt to give tax cuts to billionaires. Story 35. Some people believe that climate change is a big deal for everyone else to worry about, but they change nothing about their own lives and would be angry if someone forced them to change something. Can you imagine Leo taking public transportation instead of a private jet? Or some random important person in Chicago taking the bus instead of their car? Story 36. When a female student is sexually assaulted and groomed by a teacher, it is called sexual assault and grooming. When it is a male student, it is described as a schoolboy seduced by an older woman. This inconsistency is frustrating. Story 37. The difference in prices between men's haircuts and women's haircuts. Story 38. Wives hitting their husbands on television shows and movies is generally seen as funny, justified, or at the very least tolerated. Reverse the roles and there will be widespread outrage. Story 39. When a company has profits, ignore everyone else. Capitalism. When there are losses, spread them out through higher prices and receive bailouts. Socialism is considered acceptable. Story 40. If you are a man, you are assertive. If you are a woman, you are assertive. Story 41. A mother wakes up every 2 hours to feed her child, cooks for them every day, feeds them every day, cleans them, bathes them, dresses them, cares for them, comforts them, plays with them, and stimulates them. It is just expected. Even if we work at the same time, if a father does it, even if he does it 1/4 of the time, he is praised for being an involved father. Story 42. The difference between mothers and fathers. If a young boy has to change his clothes and says, "I don't want anyone in here but my dad," and the mom says, "He's my son, I should be in here too," no one would think twice. If a young girl has to change her clothes and says, "I don't want anyone in here but my mom," and the dad says, "That's my daughter, I should be in here too," security would be called to escort him out of the room. Story 43. Drugs are illegal, but alcohol is acceptable. I am not a supporter of drugs, but the double standard is illogical. Story 44. The thing is, poor people are judged for things that rich people get away with, take advantage of, or utilize to the fullest extent. Story 45. Companies can terminate your employment at will but require a notice period if you choose to resign. Story 46. One issue that always gets under my skin is how people talk about work-life balance differently for men and women. Women are often expected to do it all and are still judged if they prioritize their careers, while men can be praised for doing the same thing. This appears everywhere, from promotions to social expectations, and it is frustrating because the rules feel completely uneven. Story 47. Leg hair is unhygienic but only for half the population, ironically the half that typically sweats less. Story 48. The strange new Trump supporters often say, "Rules are for others, but not for me." They support a felonious individual and claim they are against such behavior. This is very disturbing. Story 49. A man sexually assaults a woman. It is sexual assault, and of course it is bad. When a woman sexually assaults a man, it is still sexual assault and just as bad, but far fewer people care. Statements like, "She's just being flirty and fun," or "Nice, you're getting some," are common. The victim is often not believed or suppresses the experience completely because they expect these reactions. Edit. Assault versus harassment. Story 50. Scowling at me for how much sugar I put in tea and coffee, yet drinking cola and juice all day like it's nothing. Story 51. There are many examples that really stand out today. Work expectations. If a man works long hours, he is considered ambitious. If a woman does the same, people say she is neglecting her family. Emotions. Men showing sadness are seen as weak. Women showing anger are labeled emotional or irrational. Appearance. Aging in men is viewed as distinguished, but women are judged harshly for the same wrinkles or gray hair. Parenting. When a father takes his child out, he is praised as a good parent. When a mother does the same, it is expected and considered nothing special. Dating. Men with multiple partners are called players, while women are labeled negatively. Story 52. Celebrities are admired, but they are people you do not know personally. Is it not strange to put strangers on a pedestal? Story 53. If a girl has sex with many guys, she is judged negatively, but when I do it, I am labeled gay. Story 54. The rise of this harmful red pill alpha male ideology makes me realize that there is still a double standard regarding sex. Women who enjoy a healthy sex life or have multiple partners are often labeled negatively, while men with similar experiences are praised as alpha males. This is unfair and should be challenged. Story 55. The government controls women's bodies but not men's, at least in the United States. Story 56. Religious fanatics can tell you all about their imaginary friends, but atheists cannot tell people that their imaginary friend does not exist. Story 57. It is common practice to make fun of and ostracize one religious group, but it is taboo and not politically correct to do so for another. Story 58. Being from a less developed country means citizens of my country have to go through difficult hoops in our visa applications to justify visiting developed countries. However, citizens of these countries can enter my country with just their passport. Some even become budget travelers in my city, but that is frustration for another day. Story 59. Men are considered players when they have multiple partners, while women are judged harshly. This is a terrible double standard. Story 60. My former manager should receive more than 10 years in jail for theft. He embezzled money by stealing products for himself and his friends. He faked purchases on corporate charge accounts to receive monthly bonuses and then returned the items early the following month as if the orders were canceled. Some products have an automatic return merchandise authorization policy where they are destroyed in the field because it is cheaper not to ship certain products back due to the cost of parts and the complexity of repair. When a staff member did something similar a few times, this individual was rightfully terminated. However, there were no consequences for the general manager because the company is privately owned. If the general manager meets his targets, it is likely that his chain of authority receives bonuses as well, and they simply look the other way. This situation is ridiculous. Story 61. One thing that drives me nuts is how society judges single parents differently based on gender. A single father getting by is often called a hero, but a single mother doing the same is sometimes criticized or pitted. It is frustrating because the effort and challenges are basically the same, yet the narrative changes completely depending on who you are. Story 62. When something bad happens to a wealthy person, it is a tragedy, and they are considered human and vulnerable for sharing it with us. When something bad happens to a poor person, it is seen as negligence and irresponsibility. Story 63. Engaging in inappropriate behavior with an intern while the Democratic President of the United States is in office leads to impeachment. Assaulting women and children while the Republican President of the United States is in office results in a second term. Story 64. That people with pain cannot get opioids, yet people with money and fame can get anything they want. Story 65. The pollution blame game is wild. While regular people are told to reduce their carbon footprint, billionaires traveling in private jets continue flying without consequence. Irony indeed. Story 66. A father spending time with his children is praised as dedicated. A mother doing the same is seen as simply fulfilling her duty, and if she pursues a demanding career, she may be criticized as neglectful. Story 67. Women, and I say this as one, being physically abusive is treated like a joke, and that diminishes what some people go through. I cannot imagine the restraint it takes not to react when someone is in your face, hoping to provoke a reaction, even putting their hands on you, and then the police arrive and basically laugh off the assault. Story 68. Pretty privilege is the new white privilege, especially on social media. Story 69. Criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic, but criticizing any other Middle Eastern country is not Islamophobia. It is either both or neither. I lean toward neither. Story 70. Reproductive health treatment. A young man wants a vasectomy. Is he sure? Fine. How responsible. A young woman wants a hysterectomy. What if she meets a man? There is also just medical care in general. Story 71. An older man dating a younger woman is often labeled negatively, while an older woman dating a younger man is praised and considered lucky. Story 72. The media holds the political right to absolutely no standard at all, while the political left is expected to be perfect and take the moral high ground. Story 73. The Republican Party's entire apparatus is built to deceive people into confusion. Everyone is fragile except when we are not. Everyone is committing crimes except we are the only ones doing so. It is just insane. Up is down. Story 74. Males who have close relationships with their mothers are often seen as weak or mama's boys. However, females can be best friends with their mothers, share every intimate detail, do everything together, and rely on their mother's opinions and expertise for all matters. This close bond is considered normal between mothers and daughters. There is no negative connotation for a female who says her mother is her best friend. Story 75. As a woman, I feel the need to say this. The same women who criticize men for disliking their labia are occasionally the same ones who make fun of men with small penises. Both are beyond our control. It is what you do with what God gave you that counts. Story 76. Republicans can do almost anything they want regardless of the rules or laws and get away with it. But the minute a member of the Democratic Party starts to actually fight back, they are seen in a negative light. I am very tired of that when they go low, we go high mentality. Story 77. A group of people want to feel safe and happy, but another group feels safe and happy only when the first group is not safe and happy. Story 78. Your employer can terminate your employment immediately, and you must leave at once. If you choose to resign from your job, you must provide 2 weeks' notice. Story 79. How judging people based on height is perfectly acceptable while judging them based on weight is not. Story 80. That black people can be racist toward white people and everyone cheers them on. A white person says the same thing in the exact same way, but about black people they would be cancelled. Racism is racism, everyone. Story 81. Many men still do not want smart, independent women, especially if they have an opinion. A man being direct, assertive, and independent is not only acceptable but respected. Meanwhile, a woman with these qualities, especially one over 35, often has a hard time finding men to spend time with outside of work unless they are just looking for financial support. Women are often expected to be attractive, non-confrontational, speak little, and not appear smarter than the men around them for men to socialize with them. Story 82. The fact that wealthy individuals are not subject to the same laws as everyone else. Story 83. 2 qualified women ran for President of the United States. Both lost to a sexual predator and incompetent reality television star because of gender bias. Story 84. In the United States, men are required to register for the Selective Service System, but women are not. Story 85. Women are often told to be more assertive but then labeled as bossy if they actually are. Meanwhile, a man doing the same thing is considered a strong leader. Story 86. Democratic governors should have more decorum than Republican governors or even the president. Story 87. One political party blaming the other when both sides are full of clowns and equally contribute poor quality people. Being called white but saying African American or Asian American, etc. is correct. If you are born here, you are American, or start calling white people European Americans if you want to play that game. Everything about religion, including clergy becoming wealthy, not paying taxes, and forcing beliefs on others. Story 88. No one asks men how they combine work and family childcare. Story 89. Men expect their girlfriends to have sex with them but only want to marry a virgin. Story 90. If a woman has sex with multiple men, she is often labeled negatively, while if a man has sex with multiple women, he is praised. Story 91. How society praises men for working long hours as dedicated providers but judges women doing the same as neglecting their family. Ambition should be respected equally. Story 92. When a manager tells their employees not to get angry at work, only to become angry at them for being angry. Story 93. If I say something to someone and they ask, "How do you know that? Did you do your research?" Then they respond with absolute conspiracy theory level nonsense. Story 94. Commercials for alcohol are everywhere, but there are no commercials for legal cannabis. What is the reason for the Fireball commercial that I see 5 times in 2 hours? It shows a bunch of small bottles in a bucket and two men on a golf course, with one holding the back of the other's head as he takes a shot. It is strangely unsettling. Story 95. There was a thread about a week ago that asked, what should there be harsher penalties for? Many people answered, animal cruelty. I asked each of them if they were vegan. The answer was rarely yes. Story 96. You would never accept a man telling his wife to raise his child from an affair. So why are men legally obligated to do so? Story 97. Mothers are seen as parenting when out with the children, but fathers are babysitting. Story 98. The United Nations, you must do all you can. The United Nations does nothing and is powerless. The public takes the blame for everything, while big businesses pay less tax worldwide. Story 99. People love their pets and treat them like royalty, but have no problem with animals held for consumption being treated horribly. Story 100. People will happily undergo surgery but refuse to eat their vegetables. Story 101. A double standard that really drives me crazy in today's society is the one related to different expectations between men and women, especially in terms of behavior, ambitions, and personal freedom. On one hand, we live in an era that defines itself as modern and open, but on the other, certain prejudices remain deeply rooted. For example, if a man devotes a lot of time to work and career, he is seen as determined and ambitious, even admirable. If a woman makes the same commitment, however, she is often judged as cold, selfish, or unfeminine, almost as if she were neglecting an implicit duty towards her family or a certain traditional ideal. The same is true in reverse. A man who chooses to take more care of the house or children is considered weak or submissive, while for a woman it is the most normal thing in the world. Another double standard concerns relationships and sexuality. A boy who has many experiences is defined as expert and self-confident, almost to be applauded. A girl who does the same, however, is often labeled with derogatory terms. This is not only unfair, but it creates enormous pressure on both sexes. Men feel pressured to continually demonstrate their virility, while women are limited in living their identity freely. Story 102. People are turning a blind eye to their favorite political parties. Many are so consumed by tribalism that they refuse to accept that their parties or the leaders of those parties can do wrong. For example, look at what is happening in the United States with Epstein and Republican voters who support the Make America Great Again movement. If the Democrats were in the position that Donald Trump is in, regarding all the allegations and evidence, they would not let it be ignored, nor would they allow false arguments. Yet because it is Trump, they turn a blind eye, ignore evidence, use the false arguments they would criticize others for, and overall refuse to apply critical thinking. Story 103. In the United States, your rights to health care will vary from state to state unless you are a cisgender man. Story 104. Since the dawn of time, men have been doing what men do if they have multiple sexual partners, and women are called derogatory names if they do the same thing. Story 105. Some topics, taboos, or groups of people can be criticized and joked about, while others cannot. Story 106. Baby boomers who are apparently against social justice causes are acting like the biggest snowflakes. Story 107. People will rub the belly of a pregnant woman and congratulate her, but nobody cups the man's testicles and says good job. Story 108. Minimum wage while on maternity leave as a high-paid woman executive. Story 109. Men and women have equal rights, but only men can be drafted. Story 110. Abortion versus owning guns. Life matters very conveniently. Story 111. Women used to call women bossy. Now they say not quite a culture fit. Story 112. Men brag about the number of people they have been with and receive praise. When women do the same, they are portrayed as the villain in a Netflix series. Story 113. If a woman runs for president, she has to be perfect. Meanwhile, the man can be a felon who cannot even make a casino profitable. Story 114. Men are shamed for any preference they have, while women are praised for theirs. Story 115. Flipping houses is praised, while flipping birds is admonished. Story 116. I am so disgusted by most processed food, artificial sweeteners, food coloring, pesticides, plastic, alcohol, tanning, and much more. I avoid chemicals, which is a broad term, but I have done Botox a few times and highlighted my hair 3 times a year. This double standard frustrates me, but I am aware that I fall into this category. Story 117. If a Jewish person is corrupt, it is because they are Jewish. If any other individual is corrupt, it is because that individual is corrupt. Story 118. People will rush to comfort my crying daughter if she falls down, but not my 1-year-old son when he does. Story 119. Men are expected to be strong yet are criticized for behaving like men. Story 120. People will endlessly debate and advocate for athletes and how much money they should receive for their work. The same people will not do the same for themselves. Story 121. Whenever something could benefit the majority of poor and working Americans, the politicians say we cannot afford it, such as universal health care. But whenever we need to bomb another country, give enormous tax breaks to billionaires, or build more prisons, suddenly politicians are silent. Story 122. The double standards for politicians, especially when one of them is black. Story 123. The most judgmental people are always telling me that I am not allowed to judge. Story 124. Arguing that women should be free to dress as they want, but if they decide to cover up for religious reasons, then they are apparently oppressed. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.